Thanks, Lisa, for that really interesting and slightly amusing introduction. I am going to just correct the Afghan comment. Is for a history of about 15 years, I've had a lovely bag of quite beautiful wool in my family room. As friends pointed out, it simply served as decoration. But during this COVID time, I've been sort of challenged to actually create it into something that may look like a blanket. So that's my COVID project. And it is crazy because I am going to run out of wool, and because it's so, anyways, it's a long story. I am a pastor's wife. I grew up in Starbuck, Manitoba. So those of you that are phoning in from Manitoba, I think some of you, it's like a little dot out of nowhere, but it is just outside of Winnipeg. So those are my roots. We moved to Kitchener, Ontario about 30 years ago, brought our little children here. Oh, not quite that long, 25 years ago, brought our little children here, and they really feel Ontario is their home, although I still feel that Manitoba is my home. There's a few things I'd like to just talk about as we're going through. First of all, I'm going to share my screen so you'll have a PowerPoint on your computer that you can watch. One of the things I'd like to really take time to do is to thank Lisa and Molly for inviting me to spend the day with you. I think it's really a privilege and a pleasure to do that. I'd also like to thank the churches, and it was fun to listen to the little popcorn because I kind of felt like I knew some of you because I've been reading your announcements, your newsletters and bulletins. So that was really delightful. And I really thank you for being brave enough to do that, because one of the things that really came out strongly from people that responded to Molly and Lisa, I'm sorry, that, can you hear that ringing? I hope not. What they responded to is they would like to see what other churches are doing. You know, only a small percentage of all the people here actually were brave enough to send in their communication material. So I would say about maybe 12 to 15% sent things in. And I'm actually going to use that as a jumping point to discuss. And I want to be very clear that I think that you are all doing a really good job in what you're doing. I am guessing that most of you are either using Word or Publisher or a word processing program to do that, which does limit the extent of creativity and even how you manage things. So I just want to say that you're doing a really good job doing what you have. So when I point things out about people's work, I want you to keep in the back of your mind that this is not a critiquing time. It's just a really good opportunity to use examples from real life churches to see how things are going really well, and how things can actually just be tweaked a little bit here and there to make it a little bit better. I'm considering two things in my experience with church administration. One is that you're already very, very busy. And my job isn't to give you more work to do, but to make your jobs a little bit easier. So I will be talking a little bit about some templating and some things like that that should just make your job easier. From what I can see, most of you are templating already. So that's fantastic that you should be doing that. I also understand that in most cases, the person putting the bulletin or even the newsletter together don't have a lot of creative say into what's happening. You're really serving your congregation in the way that they would like to be served. So I want to open that up to say that I think you're doing a really good job, and I some comments could be taken as critique. I really don't want that to happen, because I really felt that, first of all, you were brave to send in your material. Secondly, I think that you do have a difficult job. One of the basis of this conversation is really going to start out with why, who, where, when, what. One of the things that I'm quite intrigued at is the reason for communication. And I guess we haven't really talked a lot about my professional background. So I've been a communicator for a really long time. It kind of started out on the farm when I grew up, and my mom would say things like, "Where are you?" I wrote my first story or drama in grade school, where the whole school put on the play that I wrote. It was tragically not good. I am a little bit sorry that it wasn't kept, because it really was the very first time. The very first time I got paid for doing a story, I wrote a story for a church, and they paid me in Manitoba farmer sausage. So that was a really excellent way to feel affirmed in my writing. Then I went to university, and I had children, and I went to work. I wasn't working, and then I went back to school, and my goal was to become a teacher. And as I slipped my application for Teachers College, I was in my late 30s at this time, into the mailbox, I said to the person I was with, I'm going to get accepted, but I'm not going to go. And then in about a month, I was hired by World Vision Canada as their creative, as a writer. And that moment, in all of our lives, we have turning points. That moment was a turning point for me. And so then I began my career as a communicator. Within about 6 months of being hired as a writer at World Vision Canada, I was promoted to being their creative director. And that was the start of my journey of just really intensive learning about communication. Not from my own penchant is to write novels, as Lisa alluded to. I wrote a book, published it last year, called The Burning Barrel, and I'm just working on a new book that I've got storyboarded in my little office here. And so I love storytelling, but I actually learned the art of communication, which in many ways is different than storytelling. The classic journalism thing is why, who, where, what, when. And I actually want to take a moment, just to stop a little bit about when we're thinking about our church bulletin, our announcements, or our newsletters, is to think, why are we doing it? Who are we doing it for? Where is it going to be published? When is it going to be published? And what is going to be the theme of it? And I want to just really encourage you to think about your role as part of the church leadership in communicating the vision and the mission of the church to both the members that attend regularly, the people that come in and out less regularly, and then visitors. So as kind of the gatekeeper of many of the very important communication pieces that you're doing in your church, I just want you to help your church leadership understand that we need to do more than just sort of mindlessly print off stuff again and again, but to really think about it. And most of the things that I'm talking about actually will apply to digital communications as well as print communications. I know that we're in a really sort of intriguing era where we're making much more sort of making hay with the digital communication. So this is a really time for churches to spend a lot of time working out and thinking about how they promote e-communications. So I'll talk a little bit about that. I'm just going to insert it into the conversation, because I actually feel the bulletin, the announcements, and the newsletters have their own functions within your church. And whether we do it in a 8.5 by 11 folded in half, or a larger piece folded in 3, or we send it out by email, it's actually the communication that we're looking at, not necessarily the design. Although I will speak a little bit to design, because one of the great treasures that I feel I have in my own work, because I work with designers all the time, is I'm a writer by profession, but the designers can actually take my words and make it easier to read. And when it's easier to read, the communication is stronger. Lisa did say that I was going to just do this really fast. I'm trying to moderate between really fast and not so fast. So we'll see how that works. So let's start with the church bulletin. Again, I am using real church bulletins that were sent in by your churches. So I want you to realize that these are real life examples, and everyone is doing a great job. You will start to see the differences in some of them. You'll see resonances with your own. Take note of that. So the W's of why do we have a church fund, I actually dropped it down to 3, because I think when and where is pretty self-explanatory. We are doing them on Sunday morning in general because it's a service bulletin. The second one is we generally do it in the church. In this case, we're probably emailing them out to our congregations, and they have them so that when they watch a video or have their Sunday morning practices. I think that there might be some merit in just thinking about how we change our Sunday morning bulletin in this time. But first of all, why do we have one? I think those are really interesting questions. I think for some cases, it's a method of communicating announcements. In some churches, I've seen that you have a bulletin and then you have an announcement sheet. It's sort of includes the order of worship. Some churches do an order of worship, some don't. I remember taking my mother-in-law to our church, which had deleted an order of service. They just wanted people to experience a service. And she looked at the bulletin and she says, I don't know how to read this. It doesn't have the order of service in it. So, your congregation will have certain expectations. It could be a way to solicit prayer requests, visitor response cards, to share generic church information, a tangible connection to people, a way to encourage note-taking during the sermon, a vehicle to delivery of ministry inserts. That's kind of a dangerous slope to walk, and a way to acknowledge volunteers who have served in the church. Now, I have seen in looking at so many church bulletins, and like I said, I feel like I know some of you because I've really immersed myself in your material. All of those points I've seen in all of the bulletins. They're all there. You're not doing all of them at once, but everyone is using your bulletin for one of those things. So who is the bulletin for? From what I can read in most of the published pieces, but we'll point out some churches that are doing really well in sharing a lot of information in the bulletin that is very much designed for visitors. Also, there's some churches that are adding things in the bulletin for children. So it's just understanding who the bulletin is for. And then what do you want those readers of the bulletin to do with the information? And we'll see as we go through bulletins that sometimes the information is there, but there doesn't seem to be a real easy way to do something with the information. I think that there's easy ways of making that work. In other cases, the information is really well written and it's easy to access that. So I'm going to just say right now that it's weird for me to just talk straight without any interruptions, but I'm just going to keep going, Lisa, because it's my time. So I'm going to
interrupt if you want me to.
Yeah. It just seems weird. As a teacher used to teaching in a class, it's really interesting for me to do it. So here we have a bulletin that is from, interesting, St. Jacob's Mennonite Church. So interestingly, it's hard to tell that. This kind of glitch that you're seeing there in the top right-hand corner, it's actually not the bulletin's glitch. It is actually the computer's glitch. So when I transformed it into this document, that's what happened. So I would say that this is a really good classic bulletin, short and sweet. It really is a church bulletin designed to do the church. I am a little bit intrigued with the hymnals. And in this church, which you can see that the church has been very, very good about inviting new visitors and explaining some things to them. So that's really positive. We welcome visitors to our service. We regularly work 3 hymnals, and they are. So here you have, they've sort of decoded the coding message of the STJ, HWB, and the green hymn book. Oh, sorry, that's the purple hymn book. Some churches, you'll see as we go through this, have just identified them with their color. In some ways, I recommend that because then you actually don't have to have this explanation in your bulletin, that people will easily ascertain what color it is. I love the worship bag idea in the church. Those are really good ideas. I think there's, so in a lot of ways, I've just put these little notes about editing, and there's lots of ways that you can really edit to make it really easy. So instead of "we welcome visitor to our service, please sign our guest book," like I think maybe visiting, drop by the Welcome Center for a worship bag, and you might not have a Welcome Center I understand my language might not be right, but sometimes editing can really, really make a difference into the announcement being more friendly. For instance, in the nursery services, nursery information, and nursery is available for infants to 6 years of age during the worship service for children's sake. So I think that that's a long kind of announcement where you could just say nursery services for infants to 6-year-olds, please bring your children. I think that would be very easy. The one thing that is missing, and I don't know this layout of your church, hopefully that it's really easy to find the nursery location. So sometimes just putting where it is helps visitors find where you are, although most times the visitor will have found the nursery before they read the bulletin. One of the things that a good editor does is work on the titles. And titles in bulletins, announcements, and newsletters provide extremely helpful guidelines, almost like signposts to what you want to do. So for instance, the St. Jacob's Mennonite has done really good about outlining their bulletins with kind of title segments. And I'm seeing that quite a bit in the announcements. I think that sometimes we're getting this kind of thing where they're falling over. This little hope love should actually be underneath the segment, not popped over on that side. That's hard to do in Word. It's easier to do in some other design tools. But when you're doing titles, and this is not an administrator's job, but I think you can help pastors work a little bit harder on it. So this title, Face-to-Face Healthy Relationships in a Digital Age, Partners and Perseverance. I actually find that, well, maybe it's not the full title. I don't know. It's hard for me to understand, but it's very long. It could have just been Healthy Relationships in a Digital Age. I think shortening that title is really, really positive. One of the things that I do find when people are used to being in academic circles, and we'll see a really nice academic announcement a little further down, they tend to overwrite, and the title should tease you into interest. It doesn't have to explain the whole thing. Here's another one, and in this church, it's using an image, which you will see that's rare actually to do an image. Many churches are not using images in their bulletin, and images have all kinds of challenges with them. I think here, whoever wrote, Pastor Corey probably did this, The Gospel in 3D. That's a great title. It's short, it's pithy, it sort of adds attention. One of the things that I will be talking quite a lot about is using columns. So what's happening here is we are squishing quite a lot of material, and so we have a nice breathing white space here. Sorry, getting things up there. But here, especially down here, we've squished a lot of information into one space. And so I think that could be improved if we actually went to columns rather than the full thing, the full set of the page. I know that this is probably an 8.5 by 11 folded in half, but you'll see some other places where columns are doing a really good job of making the reading easier. Also, one of the reasons that newspapers are written in columns is because our eyes are trained to just flip back and forth really quickly to find the top level information. And so when we read in columns or in short scans, we get the scanning right. So a bulletin isn't a novel. We don't want to look at it as a novel. We want to make sure that it's really easy to just scan and to get the information we need. Again, many people will keep the bulletin in their home for the week. I see many people I know with the bulletins in their Bibles, and they refer to it in their prayer times as well as for upcoming events. So I think the bulletin is a really vital piece of material. Another thing that the column would do, it would actually limit this space for the title. So you would just have a little bit more space to add meaningful white space and things like that. In some of the areas, like this focus statement here. It is awesome because it's a description of the focus on Lent, which I think is really a really great thing for the church to do. But I think with a little bit of editing, this statement could have maybe been a little shorter, easier to read, and easier to understand. The other challenge is the limitation of acronyms. So GPS, I'm guessing, is the Sunday school program or the church program for children. And I think it limits the explanation a little bit. So in the content now, because an acronym is used and because the church is meaningfully engaged with making sure everybody understands it, the first two sentences are actually an explanation of the acronym. And I think maybe sometimes acronyms need to be rethought. Here, I think this is really interesting. There's the balance here is a little bit off. So you have this massive logo over here. Part of that is a limitation of the logo itself because of the way the logo is created. And then you just have a lot of information. Again, the formatting here, generally you don't want an announcement title at the bottom of the page, but you want to move it up to the top of the page. This may be, and it may be a digital format so that it actually runs. If you read it, you can click down. But even if it's a digital format, this community announcement title would come at the bottom of a page of a digital format. So you want to keep your titles and your content together as much as possible to make sure that it's an easy read. I think that they've done really well with their titles: Children Playroom, Student Ministry, Prayers for Those with Health Challenges. The writer and the administrator of this bulletin has been very, it's like Pregnancy Care Banquet, My Beautiful Messy Family. That's awesome, right? Those are awesome titles. They catch attention. I think that these announcements have been made for scanning, so it's really nice. There's a couple of formatting things that are kind of weird. Again, if you're working with Word, it's very difficult to manage those. If you can move to like a Adobe product or more of a design product, you'll actually have a lot more flexibility in how you can do your bulletin. I'm assuming that this bulletin has a bit of a template so that the titling formats and things like that are templated regularly, which is very positive. If you can, I'll show you some other examples that you can see that they've done some really nice templating. Here is the St. Jacob's Church again. It's another bulletin from a different era. Again, unlike the one before, they haven't bolded some of the announcements. So as you can see in the one just ahead, so here where the titles were bolded, here that would have made a big difference just by taking and bolding these titles just to pop them out a little bit. I think in the church hours, this is interesting. I think this is probably an announcement that almost every church has right now is the church open? Can we go to the church? Can we drop off a check? What can we do here? I think this could have been really, really simplified by just saying church hours during COVID-19 and just doing bullet forms so that it's a scannable information. A lot of times bullet forms solve the need of editing. When you do bullet forms, it's much easier to just to make things more succinct. I'm guessing that this is a church policy that you don't use names. It made me a little bit sad because one of the persons had their name published in the local newspaper. So I found it odd that it couldn't be published unless you did it just for this case, then that's different. In most cases, I think it would be good to publish names so that people know. Again, in the bottom here, it's really how you can tithe in a time of COVID. It would have been pretty easy to do that in a point form as well, making it a little quicker for people to read. So point forms are a content editor's trick to making things very, very easy to read and also making them editing them down so that we don't have to have so many words. This is sort of lovely. Again, we have the problem with the church books. This one is not that friendly for visitors because they may or may not know. I'm in the waiting room. They may or may not know what the hymn book is. So maybe there's something you can do there. There are some things. This is interesting. The JK 5 children meet at the back of the sanctuary to go to the library while the congregation sings. There might be a way of just saying children aged 5 to 10 or whatever that is, dismiss for children's church or something like that, just a little bit shorter, but it isn't. This is such a clean and classic church bulletin. Everybody's going to understand very quickly what it's saying. It's really well done. It's simple. It's done, obviously not over designed, but it's easy to understand. And I'm guessing this is the front of it, actually. Sorry, because we're seeing it on print, we're seeing a print format in a flat design. It's a lot more difficult. Again, here there's the use of an image, and then show us the light in the shadows. That's a great title. It's simple, it's easy to understand. And then basically the announcements are really easy to see. I think welcoming guests is a really interesting challenge in it to make them feel real. Even we invite you to join us in the fellowship hall, and it was great. This little basement adding is perfect because then they know where it is. I think the italics is interesting. It's great. Italics are in here. The formal way of using italics is you would actually have used italics for these quotes. From a grammar perspective, italics are the same thing as quotation marks. So if you don't want to use quotation marks, you can do it italics. So grammatically, this is inverse. This should be just normal text, and these should be italics if you're looking for a grammar approach. Just so that you know, even though I have a master's degree in English, I don't actually care if you break the rules. I just think that sometimes very pedantic people in your congregations may notice things like that. You can move with that as you want to. Again, these few bullet points I think are really interesting. They're pretty awesome because if you're a guest, you can see it. It's just really quick. So I would say on the whole, this bulletin is really what it is. It's a bulletin. It's a communication for that Sunday morning service. It has a bit of remembering to prayer. It introduces people. I like that. It tells families kind of who their volunteers are, plus it nudges anybody that forgot to go. And so it's a really nice little bulletin. It's simple, it's easy to read, and it has quite a bit of white space so that it's not all crammed into one thing. Even this section, which has quite a lot of text in it, is well spaced and has enough white space in between it. You'll see as we go through that there's other examples where the white space has not been respected in the same way. Then we go into, I think this is just a continuation of their bulletin. Maybe it's more pages that come into it. I don't know. Here we still have nice spacing. We have nice titles. I think that the Marion Rose one is interesting because you don't necessarily, if I don't know her, it's not as, if I know who she is, this is a great announcement. But I think you could shorten it and make it a little bit more poignant by just saying, would I do it again? And then Marion Rose talks about her writing and self-publishing, join her at. So that's just an example how when you edit, you can really edit very, very quickly, and you can take out a lot of the words that aren't doing it. The other thing that I was intrigued at, and it seems to be a unique trademark of this particular bulletin is there's new, and we'll see as we go on. If you go to the next page, new. I'm guessing that some of these, like for instance, the Cake Angel opportunity may have been in the bulletin before, sorry. I'm not, I would rethink that strategy of the new. I don't know exactly what it's offering you, and I think maybe it just it doesn't allow you to really work well with your titling, because your titling is good. Library Out Day is fantastic. Now an idea would be in a library update, if you do have a library feature in your bulletin, even taking an image of the book and putting it in to break up the heavy text, and then to intrigue people to come to the library to read the books that are coming in that are new, that would automatically say it was a new article. I think this whole piece here, the calendar, is a little bit awkward. The installation of the pastor, the way it's written up, it could have just been maybe done a little bit better. Again, whoever's coordinating this done a really good job to meter out the space. They have kept space between, but then this gets a little bit squishy, just because to manage the space, it's a space management issue. I'm going to tell you my little trick of managing space, because we do things for clients all the time, and the people that are doing the design come to me on a regular basis, and they just go, take copy out, take copy out, take copy out. So I generally look for the last line and see which one I can take out the least words in order to manage the space. But having that kind of challenge to make to shorten text in order to do a better and more open a design is a really, really good challenge for content editors, because when you take a look at it, you actually can really edit copy quite interestingly, so that you can take out words. And whenever you take out the words that do not need to be there, you make the announcement stronger. Remember that the bulletin isn't a novel, it's not a short story. It's just supposed to be really quick notes that help people understand what's going on. In this, the elder thing was very interesting to me, because I couldn't actually figure out why you needed the whole description in the bulletin when the members were getting a description in their church mailbox. And that, so sometimes we repeat things in our bulletin that maybe don't need to, because we're afraid they won't pick up their mail or something like that. That's where discernment comes in. You just need to decide how much you will need to put in your bulletin and how much you'll expect your members to actually to go to their mail. They could have just said, go to your mailbox to see the full description, right? Again, there's a lot of information. I think one of the unique characteristics of Mennonite Church Canada is the incredible length of announcements that they have. And one of the things is, and I'm really going to sort of cheer for you on this, is that you do keep your congregations very informed to some of the Mennonite auxiliary organizations, like Mennonite Central Committee and the universities or schools, private schools, and also to Mennonite Disaster Services. You really do a really good job at doing that. So again, to fit that all to your church bulletin is often difficult, which is why I guess many churches have moved to an announcement sheet, and we'll see some of this. This is a really interesting bulletin. It's probably the most unique one in the group that I received. It's from Niagara United in Southern Ontario, and it's used a beautiful picture on the front. So it's coming on the Mother's Day theme. It's popping in some different pictures in to actually identify the information. It has this whole feed here. I didn't actually understand the information completely, because you could join online or you could join online. So I don't know, like it seemed to be the same information, but I just might not understand that better. That's why talking is good. So they've, again, like just look at how free and breathy this is. again, used a photo in order to make an announcement of their weekly service broadcasting on Kojiko, which is an HD cable. Also, this week they have they have very busy church, but they have very good announcements. I think photos always increase interest. One of the challenges is to find great photos that you can use that are royalty free. One of the big things that churches tend to do, and I think Mennonite Church Canada is actually much better at this than other churches I've worked with, is that they will just borrow pictures from the internet because they're easy to do. But Unsplash and Burst are two royalty-free photo sites. There's more than this, but these are the two that I use. They both have really good photos, and they're all royalty-free. They also, especially Unsplash, they're actually real people's photos. So basically, people can go there and load up their photos, and people can download them. And so often you get more casual photos, more people-oriented photos, more fun photos that can actually happen. One of the unique things about the Niagara United Church, Mennonite Church, is that they've actually created some brand identity. So they've created it with their text, so their font usage. You can see that on the whole, the font is all the same, except for their categorical titles. Their actual point titles are just bold and bigger. They're small, but their main titles are used with the script font. They've also created icons for each of the areas of their communication. And the benefit of icons when you're communicating to things, one is they give a break into the copy so that it doesn't look so heavy to read. They also give the reader a mental cue to what they're reading. So it's all in your brain. You're not thinking this, oh, that icon tells me this. That's not what they're thinking. But what they are doing is those icons just tell the brain that this is what they're reading, and it prepares them for them. Our brains are incredibly brilliant and complex organs in our body, and the icons along with words always help us to read better. So I think this bulletin is really well designed for ease of reading. I think this donation pre-copy could have been shortened a little bit. Maybe not quite so long. Again, here, there's an easy way. This is an easy format. So mailbox, e-transfer, mail, online, or auto transfer. So those are really great. I know that some churches have coordinated with their local credit unions in order to set up a monthly transfer from the bank account. One of the exciting things here is that you have the availability of having your online directly done to your church website now. So you might want to look at that instead of going to Canada Helps. You can go right to the church, and then you actually get people to go to your church website, not to Canada Helps website, which is a really good branding moment. But overall, this is a really interesting bulletin that looks quite different from most of them. Again, here we have the same thing there. It's obviously templated to some degree, and I think that's really awesome. There are these kind of pullouts which are hard to do in Word, which it looks like this is probably designed in maybe Publisher. There is some merit in maybe not cramming them into the bottom, but maybe putting one on top and one at the bottom, those kinds of things. But overall, this bulletin is clean, easy to read, and it's really easy to understand. I'm hoping that the template is also easy for the administrator to set up and to do on a regular basis. They also add on something for the kids in all of us. I'm guessing everybody does the word search, not just the children, but it's a great addition of a little bit of fun, especially for visitors in the church service. So well done. I'm here again, another church in Altona. You're using a picture just to make your bulletin look a little bit more warm, more inviting. Again, very clean. Using a box to put information or segment information is really good. I think that there could be use of subtitles here that might have made it a little bit easier. So for instance, you could have, so these two articles are really about the missions or witness program. Instead of just pray, you already have, we already know this is a praise and prayer corner. It would be merit to just say, pray, just young adult children of witness workers, and then explain the reason to pray. In the church COVID closure, I think you could have just started with COVID-19, and it would have got attention, because it's some of the prayer concerns are a little bit complex, but it's great. Just setting them aside in that box is a really good graphic way of highlighting them and getting the reader to read it. One of the interesting points about reading is generally, again, this would have been folded, but the reader reads from the top left-hand corner to the bottom. And when there's something like a box like this, their eye quickly goes to that. So in some ways, the designer of this bulletin has decided that the prayer and praise corner is more important than the order of service, so that the eye is drawn directly to this one. Again, here we have one of the challenges with very, very many announcements. There's really competing announcements here. There's so many of them, it's difficult actually to focus on any of them. This is one of the places where sometimes churches will decide, well, I'm going to do a newsletter rather than a church bulletin, because then I can make these church announcements. I don't have to put them in my bulletin. They can go to the newsletter. A lot of the announcements are actually a little bit ahead of time. So if you're doing a newsletter every 3 months, they can go in there. This is really where the discernment comes in from the church leadership, or if you as an administrator have the power to do that. That was really good. There is a really interesting technique being done here. Is they're bolding the first word of the sentence. I would say that in an announcement area, that is not that's not the best the strategy. It's better to use a strategy where the announcement could be more specific. So, church is open at something like that, so that you know what it is. I think that just doing during doesn't tell me anything. Make sure that whatever you're bolding can be a message in itself. Again, a lot of these announcements are, again, community announcements, which church community is separate. So that's great. It's a great format. I think it's a little crammed in there, but it really is a good format. There's just some titling areas that could be done better. This is really interesting to me. I'm assuming this was in the bulletin. I may be wrong, so I think you can help me out here. But this is a lovely story written by the pastor, and I think a lot of the members will really be intrigued to read it. It is really an example of storytelling, giving information in the form of a story. I think this would have been perfect for a newsletter, because it's something that you could take with you, you could give away, you could share with other people. And then imagine if it was designed with a few photos, maybe some pullouts and things like that, just to make the reading easier. But it's a very beautiful story that took time to write. And I think there's some design elements that would have just made it easier to read and really interesting to pass out to friends and things like that. Share your pastor's story with neighbors and friends. So good work. The story is fantastic, but I think it could have some design that would just make it easier to read. Toronto United Mennonite, again, a pretty classic, clean bulletin. I think it's great. I love the blue purple thing. That's great. I was really, really happy to see that. I think that this sort of masthead, we would call that a masthead. So the top of the bulletin would look the same every week. I think you would get a lot more mileage by just saying everyone is welcome here and not say the whole thing. I think this is overspoken. This should go on your website. It should go underneath About Us. It should go there. but I think that it just makes me wonder which category I fit in. But if you just had everyone as welcome here, it would be a really awesome statement of the openness of the church. I love that wireless hearing assistants are available. That's a good announcement to be there. I think the order of service is really well done. Having the content of call to worship is great. Again, there's this space here is really well written. I kind of also see in the main bulletin, I don't actually understand that. So either this is not the main bulletin or something. I think the spacing here could have been a little bit better. Just, you've got this big chunk of copy in this one space with a lot of just empty space at the bottom. It doesn't mean that you have to put more contact in here. There would just be a very good possibility of making this spaced out a little bit so it's easier to read. Whoops, I just went way ahead of myself here. Again, the rest of more scripture was done here, so I guess this is the main bulletin. I don't know. It's so again, this is a page. I'm guessing that's a half of a page, or 8.5 by 11 cut in half, and the scriptures are on both sides. Shiloh Mennonite, I think it's again really clean. I love the titling. It's very clear: men's Bible study, women's retreat. The space between things are really great. I think the youth announcement could have been edited to just Cedar Mania on March 20. It's like this high energy day at Cedarville University designed for senior youth. It's going to be fun. Register now. Could have really been shortened, make it a little bit easier. I think this is a very classic bulletin that covers everything you need. So well done. Again, the spacing is giving you enough white space to breathe onto the bulletin. I think, sorry, this is because the resolution of the graphic that I received wasn't high enough to make it this big. That's a good reason. So basically the graphic is a graphic. It's like a picture. So that's something you just want to be prepared with all the time when you're making bulletins or using photos. Just using the photo at the resolution that works for your graphic. And we can give you some of those numbers if you want to, but it's pretty readily available online. Again, I think this is a really great bulletin with this lovely graphic at the front, at the top to center the bulletin as a whole. A quick what's happening. It's all again in columns, so it's easily scannable, easy to read, and it has a lot of power because it's a Christmas bulletin, but it's very beautiful. Has the information that you need. This is a really interesting one because it's used pull-out boxes and colors to really really get people to read different things. One of the challenges with it though is that the different colors and the different pieces actually compete with each other. So your eye, if you just think about the way your eye is looking at this now, and it's kind of going all over the place. And so I felt that this one probably needed a little bit more organization and a little bit more thought to less color. And but overall, it's an interesting example of how color can really make a bulletin pop. One of the challenges is that you have, this is really your title, but the yellow bar, because yellow is the first color your eye sees, it really sort of competes with the title. So it's today, tonight, Wednesday seem to be the most important thing on this page. So just think about that. Take a step back when you're designing to see how that feels to you. And Lisa, I know I have 5 minutes, so I'm going to go really quickly. Basically, this is a pastoral installation that is giving the liturgy for the service. I'm going to say it's clean, it's easy to read, it's easy to follow. Obviously, it has no graphic elements, but I think that for the purpose of it is being well met because it has everything you need for that service. Again, they've done the blue and purple, Nith Valley. It's clean, it's easy. It's really easy to read. It has the vision statement or the tagline of the church right there. It has a nice little understanding of where everything is. So it's easy to follow. And then it has some of the elements of the service in the bulletin itself, which is awesome. And then nobody has to worry about not finding what they need. This one is, you can see, just if you compare this one to this one, you will actually see just how cramming more information is difficult to understand. There also is some things so coffee time was interesting to me. So today donation support, and what's the support? So I'm assuming that at coffee time you give donations. If I was a visitor, this would be very, very difficult for me to understand or even to know what it is. I was really interested in the photo disclaimer. So basically they're saying that every so often someone's going to come by and take pictures. You might be on our website or in some of our material. That's a great disclaimer to have. I'm sure that your Safe Church philosophy actually has the mandates of what it is to take photos and what you have to do for photos. I was really happy to see that the churches are taking that seriously. Again, show us your hiding place in the thick of temptation. I think that title should have been either your hiding place or in the thick of temptation. Again, a little bit more teasing. I know that the pastor has written that title. I'm hoping that your pastors are open to maybe nudging towards more stronger and, sorry, that's grammatically correct, stronger and more powerful titles that tempt us into wanting to hear. I think this is good. There's a quick week here. It's really nice. They've met the challenge. I was interested in this statement, and I was wondering if the church was established in 1949. I didn't know whether it was an excuse that there were German-speaking people in my church, or that we don't speak German anymore. I was not understanding why that was in the bulletin. It really seemed like something that should be in the website under history of the church. So it was an interesting comment to me. But again, sometimes the bulletins are conveying messages that you want for everyone to know. Again, clean. Here you can see life in the church. You can see how just, again, Wednesday, 6 p.m. for simple suppers. That's a good use of bolding because it has the key information. Children's mission offering, key information, potluck group. It's all, this potluck group could have been ignored, and it could just be the potluck for Saturday, March will be a true potluck. I'm not sure what a true potluck is, but I think what they meant is everyone is just going to bring what they brought. But again, very clean. This is another bulletin from the same church. Oh no, I'm going backwards, sorry. Again, this is the challenge, is that we have so many announcements. So this is where you might want to just think about a little bit whether you're going to do an announcement sheet or a newsletter or something like that, because it just gets really deep into everything. I think sometimes contact Anne before February if you want to be a guest or a host. If I'm a visitor and I want to participate, that kind of leaves me out. So I think for visitors, when we're saying contact somebody, it really is good for you to be a little bit more specific. In the time of digital that's right now, putting the email address in right away that you can click on it and go to it is a really good way. So here we have an email bulletin, which is fantastic. I think they've done a really good job. Everything's in here. You can just click away at all kinds of things. I think that what you want to do, though, is discern what belongs in an email, an evite, or prayer emails. In the email, it's probably more effective not to send everything in one long rolly-scrolly email, but to just put what you want and put the teaser line in the email. I don't know if this one has one. The teaser line in the email can be what the email is, so prayer requests or Sunday morning bulletin or whatever you want to do. But the long rolly-scrolly is not always effective. But I think all the links in here and everything like that are fantastic. Again, another one, nice and concise, really, you can see where the focus are. Again, there is a little kind of, not really a mission statement, but an explanation of the church. which is nice. Congregational calendar. I think here there could have been some titles that would have had it. We Did It Canada's fascinating. This is kind of an interesting title for me because it makes me want to read it, right? So we did it. I think some other things could have been regarding blah, 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 congregational emailing. So this is basically saying that some people were missed. I might edit that to say, you know, if you have not been receiving group emails, please email me now. Just making sure that that happens. I did read, not in your group, but in one group, it had top of the email bulletin said, if you didn't get this, tell me, which is kind of a non-statement. So announcements, these are the challenges. I'm just going to say, wow, this is a challenge of Word. This is a very, very dense sheet of announcements. I think part of me just goes, why didn't you just use all 3 pages and just make things just a little bit more separate, like a space between each one? At this point, one of the things that we're learning when we do tests is that people recall, plus they notice things more if there's more space between things. So I know that people say, well, they don't want to read a lot of content. And in some ways that's true. But a wall of content is much more intimidating than content that's well titled and well separated. So I think I'm guessing that this sheet goes to people's homes and they can keep it and they can look at it in different ways. I'm even guessing some people will highlight different things that they don't want to forget. So I really think it's a great format, a great way to do sending an announcement sheet. But I think that the design could have just been a little bit more well spaced and with some white space that would have helped the reading a little bit more. Now this is really fun because you're going to see this is the PowerPoint that's done on a church, and they've done it in fade outs. So that's why it's fading out. And the churches, these are the announcements done as a PowerPoint format. I'm just going to flow through it quickly because we don't have that much time left. Oh, I'm over time already. What I would argue here is that while the PowerPoint is awesome and doing it is awesome, even by this quick view that I'm giving now, what's happening here is that there's no brand identity. I can't tell what church it is. I can't tell that these are from the church. Some of these, like these kind of ads, look like they're ads out of something else. So I would do some work at templating my PowerPoint to make it look like my church. Again, here's just a few more things that you see. One of the things in email, make sure that when you're emailing that the blind copy doesn't go to everybody. While I love getting everybody's email, probably just for privacy's sake, you don't want to do that. There's a lot happening in the church, and they've used color and bold to set things aside. I would suggest that the prayer was a separate email so that it could be easily researched or easily found in the piece. From our church family, I'm not sure what I would do with that. Maybe just tuck it at the bottom of the bulletin, taking the prayer things out. I think for the Guess Who's Coming to Drinks, that's a fun annual tradition. I know that it's kind of an awesome thing to do. In this case, even having a sign up and online registration on your website would have been fantastic rather than sending someone an email, but it's a great, I would have sent this out as a separate email as well. Again, anytime now that we're in a more digital environment, setting up registration forms and things like that from your email, and then getting people to get those lists in a good format from your email is really good. I'm not sure if Matt will show you exactly how to do that, but it's pretty possible from the website. I love this. This is 3 years of events. Like, it's amazing. Kudos to the church who does this, St. Jacob's Mennonite. I'm just wondering, I'm guessing, I think it could be done maybe just in a shorter term, but it is amazing to give an overview of the year. It's amazing. Again, I'm guessing this might be a replacement for video. I don't know. It's the whole service is written out. So it's pretty pretty big. So quick tips: simple but engaging, consistency, error-free, white space, and discerning. So discerning what you want to put in your bulletin and what you don't. And engaging. I think engaging is where the copy editing comes in, using good titles, strong titles, and making sure that things can be scanned. Newsletters, again, the why do we have it? Sometimes I found it hard to decide whether the newsletter was a bulletin. So this one's kind of like a bulletin. Sargent Avenue does a fantastic newsletter, so you might want to talk to them a little bit about how they're doing it. From the intensity of it, wow, there's a lot of work gone into that. I would just say that a lot of strength can be put in when captions are very clear. I'm guessing this is kind of a caption, but captions are usually underneath. This is a great event. The pictures are fantastic. People always read captions first, so make use of caption space. So here, this would have been a great time to make use of caption space. In this, the balance between photos and text is really imbalanced. You've got some heavy pages and some not so heavy pages, but on the whole, kudos, it's a lot of work. This one's a little less formatted. Again, this is another one from Sargent Avenue. Quick tips: use columns, keep paragraphs under 4 lines, make sure each picture photo has a caption, use your white space well, strategize, write, design, and edit. One last thing, quick on storytelling. When I storytell, I always start with a mind map, and that sort of outlines the whole story. This is not a mind map for a story, it's strategies for whole food, plant-based living, but it just tells you storytelling often isn't linear, so when you have that outline, it helps you to place your story in an intriguing manner. Start with the end, so know where you want to go with your story. Generally, you want some meaning in the story, emphasize the conflict or challenge. So you're building up to something, solving the challenge, and then coming down. Use metaphors and similes instead of adjectives and adverbs. So word pictures, basically, instead of just saying adjectives. Adjectives and adverbs can almost always be edited out of a piece. Resist pedantic details. I have a sister-in-law that when she tells a story, it will always take about 27 minutes. And she tells every detail, even if it doesn't matter. That's where the editing comes in. Take out details that don't contribute to the conflict or to the meaning at the end. Use details to your advantage. That means be specific. So I'll say 27 minutes because I've used an odd number that catches your attention. Paint the picture with strong nouns and strong verbs, and tell the action with strong verbs. Resist the inevitable adjectives and adverbs, and edit the opening sentence is critical. I'm going to tell you, I'm trained academically. I have a leaning towards passive language when I'm writing. I write just the way I write. I sort of call it just write straight out, and then I edit hard. The opening sentence is often the most difficult to write, but don't let it stop you. Just write it and go back and edit it later. Okay, that's it. Lisa.
Richard Ackerman, you said about the PowerPoint, did the author explain the context for its use?
I can just jump in. I think that where the church used that particular PowerPoint is it just ran before the service while people were sitting down and coming into the sanctuary. So I think that was the context of where that PowerPoint was used.
Okay, that's what I was looking for, Gayle, because I don't think it's practical to send a PowerPoint out to people through the email because it's just not a format that everybody has.
Yeah, so I do actually use PowerPoint to send people to, but I always transfer it into a PDF. So then it often becomes a space that you can actually manage a little bit better with photos and stuff like that. But you're right, as a PowerPoint, it's not the kind of thing that you want to send out to people. But yes, that would have been running as announcements. So instead of having an announcement sheet, they would run a PowerPoint.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
So are there any other questions that are out there? And I would actually, Dorothy and Listowel, could you share the tips for bulletins that was near the end of the PowerPoint again? It was a good checklist. Gayle actually just sent her PowerPoint to me. in the form of a PDF. And so that will be sent out to you. But if you want to talk about any of those tips for bulletins, yeah.
I just have to look them up again, just to make sure that I'm on the same page as it is. Just a second, I'll just pull that up. I think they were very basic tips in the sense of just making sure things were engaging, making sure that they were short and pithy. Like the bulletin, what we always want to just remember that it's not a, it should always just be as short as possible. I'll just flip out there to the end of it. It's a long PowerPoint. So you'll see all your bulletins many times. Here we go. Sorry, it's farther down than I thought it would be, but here it is.
Simple, consistency, error-free, white space, and something else. That's what someone remembers here.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
Forget your name, but it's ABC office, so I forget your name. I'm sorry. No, but you're from Manitoba. Susan.
Yeah, so simple but engaging, consistency, your error-free, white space, discerning, and engaging. I mean, lots of people find it fun to find errors in bulletins. It's easy to do. We were joking around is when we were producing all this stuff, we consistently wrote bulletin as bulleting, which is just not right. You know, some other design tips would be to create mastheads so that there's a consistency in your design. It's the same masthead, so they always know where it's from, what the church is from. Using icons to indicate different sections, using a little bit more color. Now, if you're printing yours off in black and white, we understand the color conversation. Color isn't as expensive as it used to be, so that's a whole new thing. Keeping white space, like I said already. Pullouts are really interesting, like taking content and just pulling it out into sections, breaking up the writing so that it's easier to read, using captions, and then using titles as well. Those are some of the tips.
So they're coming in fast and furious. When we get announcements from other organizations, can we edit their announcements? For example, Canadian Mennonite University, Mennonite Central Committee, and they were very careful not to say Mennonite Church BC, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, EC. I would say Mennonite Church Eastern Canada. When I send you an announcement, there are times that I can edit that down, and there are times that I just can't edit it down when I send it out. And I fully anticipate that if you have the time to do so, you only have limited space. So I edit them down. If you put MCEC in your bulletin, we thank you, we thank you, we thank you. Please edit them down if you can, and I apologize for sending you long announcements.
Yeah, I would say edit things down. It's if they're counting on your goodwill to do their announcements. So I would, you know, Lois Bergen says she always edited them down. Go for it. That's great on you. YouTube, because it's already a shared environment, is open to sharing. Like YouTube is, if you're posting something on YouTube, you are allowing that to be royalty free. I think there's a lot of YouTube's really interesting because, so the responsibility of getting copyright for a song is to the person that's putting up the YouTube video. So what you're doing when you're posting a YouTube video is counting on YouTube, the person that posted that video, to have copyright.
So I'll jump in if that's okay. MCEC was caught on that at an annual church gathering, and our YouTube video got flagged because of copyright issues. Even though we had proper issues, we still had to go back and prove that to YouTube so that they would allow that information to be posted. Basically,
YouTube asked you if you had copyright for the material you were producing.
Yeah.
So if you now play MCEC's YouTube video, MCEC has gone to the work to get the copyright already.
Pros and cons of Word to PDF. Sometimes the line breaks or page break change and make for problems.
Oh yeah. There's no getting around problems in designing in Word. It is not a design tool. It's a it's a word processing tool. I just would think, yeah, if you can at all do either an InDesign, which is an Adobe product, or even Publisher's a little bit better. Basically, Word. If you are making some of the bulletins you're making in Word, kudos to you. You're doing a great job.
One reality that was not discussed is that there are often 2 to 3 or 4 versions of every weekly bulletin. Oh my goodness.
I don't understand that. Like, do you mean that you're doing them in 4 different ways for 4 different people? Like,
Dorothy?
Yeah, so there's one that when we're meeting, we print. So that's one hopefully black and white, but maybe color, depending on the week. There's the one that goes on the web, which doesn't have any personal information in it, and has hyperlinks, whereas the printed one does not have hyperlinks. And then there's the one that we email out to everyone who does have personal information and hyperlinks. And then there could potentially be another one. So it's just everything that we do, we think of it differently depending on how our final product is going to be.
yeah, that's awesome. It's just more work for you though, right?
Well, but it's a necessary service for our people, right? So
that's great.
Yeah, so it's another reality over top of all the tips that you were giving us. So
yeah, so that's one thing that I would argue, that the new online environments have just made everything more work. They haven't changed what we did already, right?
And we also talked in our breakout room about people who, a greater or lesser percentage of our members are non-computer folks. Yeah. So in our congregation, there are 10 families that are non-computer at all. And so how do we serve them as well?
I just want to let you know, Dorothy, that Richard Ackerman is advocating for a raise for you.
Thanks, Richard.
Yeah. So okay. About Burst and Unsplash, so they both give you the option of acknowledging the photographer, but it's not a necessity.
Gayle, can you say something about font size? And I mean, the bulletins you showed had lots of different kinds of fonts. Some are easy to read, some are not.
So fonts are highly subjective, right? And even if you're using Word, you have access to 800 million fonts, right? Like it's no. So the rule of thumb is only use generally no more than 3 different font types in any piece. Although we would even say don't even use that many. If we remember the church that did the very graphic one, they use 3 different fonts. So generally each font has a headline font and they have an italic font. Those would all be considered different fonts if you were counting your font types. We generally recommend using a specific font for headline, whether it's the same font as the copy text but just bigger or italics, and then using the same font for all body text. I think that sometimes people will get into a hole by doing pullouts and all kinds of different fonts. That doesn't really help you. The fonts become distracting then. In general, keep your font level as low as possible. People still argue about whether a serif or a non-serif is easier to read. So Tamara just said that for those with dyslexia, it's easy to read them without serifs. There's some argument older people probably read serif fonts a little bit easier just because that's what they're used to. But we don't find that when we're testing the fonts that there's that much difference, excluding the disabilities. So I think using them with, it's more modern to use fonts without serifs. Yeah. If you don't like Word, so Adobe Acrobat offers you what's called InDesign. That's a design platform. It's good for almost, you could use it to design anything in your church. It's really an open design product. I was going to look, but I didn't. They may have some not-for-profit rates that you could get it at a better deal. A lot of not-for-profits are using publisher, which is in the word family, and for sure publisher is going to give you a not-for-profit a better rate. I know that Word does have rates. So Susan, how do you like publisher as compared to Word? Is Susan there? She just posted that she uses publisher. InDesign is great, but you're right, it can be expensive.
Susan?
Does anybody else use publisher? I don't use
It
publisher.
wasn't this Susan that posted that question.
Okay, okay. Some Susan said they use publisher.
She was in our group.
Oh, okay,
But it
okay,
wasn't that Susan either.
okay.
Oh, her microphone isn't working.
I use Publisher to do our bulletin at church. And I find it works well. You're constantly moving things around, but you can have a bit more flexibility to be able to add a graphic in, add something smaller in, add something larger in, put boxes around things.
Yeah, for sure publisher is it's a huge step up from Word because it's designed as a publisher. So as a more graphics program. InDesign is sort of the professional version of, like, anybody that does professional design is probably using InDesign from Adobe. I've not actually heard of Canva from Niagara Church. That's interesting. It's just another publishing program, right?
Canva, I think, is the InDesign freeware equivalent.
Okay.
Yeah, it'd be similar. We also do all of it's a graphic design. So I do all our Facebook website banners, postcards, same idea. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely if you do have some kind of design software, you're going to be able to do everything a lot easier. It looks like a lot of people are using Publisher. Publisher is by Word, and InDesign is by Adobe. So they're different software providers. And TechSoup provides programs for free for church. So you can look at TechSoup as well. If you have the Word, doesn't Word cut automatically if you have the professional package? And I think that charities get the professional package at a much lower cost than everybody else. But yeah, anybody that's using Word to do what they're doing from what we saw here, I just give you a huge cheer. Yeah, that is not, I don't even like writing in Word. I get so frustrated when they won't let me number things. See, Marianne, you're an expert in Word, I guess.
Are there any other questions out there that we can?
Yeah, see, so from the comments, it's just looking like some people are loving using Word. Compared to a graphic design tool, it does have limitations. But if you're doing simple stuff, Word has a lot of. Google Docs is interesting. Yeah, see, so everyone's doing a little bit different things.
I guess I would have a question, but I'm not, most of you would know because you don't even know me, but I'm not at a church. I'm at Rockaway Mennonite Collegiate. And so part of my role there, whenever we create anything, and we don't make church bulletins, but it was really helpful to talk with those of you who do make them, because obviously we use them for announcements and stuff. Part of my role there, and I think everybody else here would be that same role, is consistency across everything we make, like consistency in text, consistency in using words and certain kinds of words. And words, lately, we were just working on our spring newsletter. And so I check for that, and things like online, on hyphen line, on space line, online one word, right? Like you look up different grammar websites and now they're all saying It used to be two separate things, now it's one thing, and now it's one word. Or the difference between I.E and E.G for the short form of example. Like, where do you come up with, and maybe you all know this and I just don't, but where do you all come up with what you choose, or why you choose that, and then the consistency throughout that?
Yeah, so do you use an Oxford comma or not? When do you use a semicolon? One of the things that we're finding, yeah, Chicago style is old, but there's 800 style books. We generally recommend the Canadian Press Style Guide. Whether you use Canadian spelling or not, honestly, it's your own choice.
Okay.
When we started Barefoot, we had a lot of fun. We asked a professor from the University of Waterloo who was about style guides. That's what he did. And we asked him about, one of our clients insisted on doing a really interesting way of doing reverend or Mr. So his definition of whether to use a period or not was really, we had never even heard about it before. And he came to us with about 18 style guides, and he said, you have to just choose what you choose. So even between Chicago style, the MLA, the psychology style guide, or the Canadian Press style guide, you are going to see a different style in every one of those books. So I think as a community, so Rockway, I would say you should just choose, like, one of the questions that comes up a lot in our Christian clients is, do you capitalize Bible? Do you capitalize his? Do you capitalize gospel? Like what? So one of our clients, they only capitalize gospel if it's used as a noun, not as an adjective. So gospel message would be uncapitalized, but the gospel would be capitalized. So in the work that we do, because we work with many different clients, we keep a private style guide for every client so that we know, so that we don't get it messed up. We still get it messed up, but it is a really good question. And I'm old enough that I still like to spell Canadian spellings, but right now our children in school are being taught they can choose either Canadian or American spelling. So the affinity to spell Canadian like OUs is really kind of going out the window a little bit. So I think as a communicator, or as a communicator, you just have to make that decision. Like, his website, one word or two words? Is online hyphenated or not? And you're right, it changes about every 6 months.
All right. Okay, so I think what we want to do right now is to move into the next part. We have another time where we'll be together to chat. I think Matt is in the house from Barefoot Creative. And so MC Canada has been working with Barefoot Creative over the past 1.5 years on communications, and specifically on a website hub connection, on a congregational website hub that connects national to regional to congregations and camps. And we're slowly building this hub to connect all of us. And we're just starting to realize the potential of that. So Matt Cooke is the project manager at Barefoot. He is a dad with young kids. When I see him online, he's got a brick wall behind him because he's up in the attic so that he can get work done because his house is very active. Matt has always been helpful when we've been working on the site, and I think several people that are on this call right now have been working with him closely in developing their own sites. And so we just thought it would be a good opportunity to give you a website commercial, just to give you a look into that, a glimpse into that. So welcome, Matt, and we would ask you to come on and to talk to us about the website hub.
All right. Thanks, Lisa. Hi, everybody. I think you can probably see me and my brick wall. Fortunately, it's a cooler day today, so I'm not stifling in the heat of the attic right now. So it's kind of nice. I am in Kitchener. I know many of you are from across the country. Some of your names I recognize from connecting with you over your own websites. I am just a little curious, just by a show of hands on the one page I have of actual images, who is actually working with the Barefoot website at the moment? Okay, so there's a handful at the moment. That's great. Yeah, I do recognize some of your names. It's nice to put a face to your name. I hope my face is okay to put to my name, and we'll go ahead, and I just want to walk you through the Barefoot web, how it works, give you an idea of what Lisa and Gayle and the Barefoot team have been working on with Mennonite Church Canada, how it integrates with each other, and what you can do to use a website to connect with your community, connect with those who give through their tithes or their offerings, and how the Barefoot website works for you. So this will be a fairly quick demonstration. I want to first show you how the websites work, show you a few of the websites, how easy it is to find for your community to find information online and to continue donating, especially now as your community probably finds themselves sitting around a TV screen on a Sunday morning instead of sitting in the chairs or their pews, and that offering basket goes by. There's other ways to connect with your community, and the website nowadays is one of the best ways to connect. So I'll then show you how you can set up your own website with the platform, the ease of use of that, and then we'll take a quick look at a website that's currently live and see what they're doing with their website. So let me first share my screen with you and see if I can find it here. Guessing that's the one. Hold on, it's asking me to open my system preferences. There we go. Okay. Sorry, I did not expect that to happen. So let me share my screen now. There we go. Okay. So we've worked with Mennonite Church Canada and kind of our own design team to develop 4 different themes that you can work with. We're developing some more in the back end at the moment. They should be up and running in the next few months. And you can use these themes to start adding your own photos, your own videos, your ministries or your programs, or any other content that you need to add. They all have different styles to suit whatever format works best for you. The colors are fully customizable, so the templates, these themes are really free to choose a structure that suits your needs. This here is called our Spring Fresh template. Spring is a great time of year, so you can see the colors are bold. In this case, the colors actually match the logos. So if you have a church that has its own logo, we would use that to develop the colors around it. Or when you set up your website, if you don't have a logo, we'll use the graphic standards of Mennonite Church Canada, create a logo for you, and then you provide us with the input into what colors you want on your own website. So you can see that every page is set up. We've got a home page. There's a main navigation bar at the top that's pre-formatted for you based on your input. These are just recommendations that you can see through the themes. You may want, instead of it saying programs, you may want it to say ministries. There's news and events. There's a giving page, and other options if you do online services or you want to post videos of your online services or your bulletins. There's a place for everything on a website. You choose what goes on your website. You choose how it looks, how it functions, and how to best connect with the community that you're a part of. We have a classic. We call this one the classic calm. It's a lot simpler, a lot cleaner looking. Some good formatting to it to make it easy for your users to find information. Again, the pre-formatted navigation bar at the top is all set for you. We have another theme. This one's just essentials. It's just the basics. Gets you straight to the information that you want your community to find. You'll notice that there's a lot of just filler text. We call it lorem ipsum. If you have people in your community who speak Latin, this would be great for them, but you've got the opportunity to completely change all the text on here and make it suit your community. So when you start the process with Barefoot, we'll ask you for the theme that you want to use, what colors you want to use, and we'll ask you for the main navigation on the top so that you can start with only having to edit the pages that you've requested. Once we set up the theme, we'll send it over to you with access so that you can actually start adding your content. The site's not live. I'm just going to slide over to a theme that I'm logged into. You can see I'm logged in at the top here. So this site that we give you, it's not live. It's just for you to work on in the background. If somebody Googles your church, they won't come across this site. This site will work with you to make sure that you have it where you want it to be before it's launched, before it's public, and so that your community can find it. So let's take a look at what you're able to do when you get a new template. I'm going to use this template just kind of as a example of some of the things you can do with the Barefoot web. Editing your content is it's simple as double clicking. I'm sure as administrators you're all used to different kinds, and it sounds like you are used to all different kinds of word processing programs, from Google Docs to Publisher to Word. This system works very similar to those word processing programs that you're already used to. So you can easily just edit text here. I'm just going to go into this first line of copy here. I'm just double clicking, and you can type in a new copy. Here, replace the standard copy that comes with any new theme. And then publish. So it's as simple as that, just double clicking, editing your content, and then publishing it. And it's live to you. It's not live anywhere else. Every place where you see text, you can edit that text, you can make it your own. You can format all of these blocks of content that you see. There's all sorts of different templates that you can choose from. I'll show you how that works in just a second here. You can add or remove blocks that just don't suit your style or aren't needed on a page. And they all come with pre-built fonts so that you're not worried about what color should I choose, what font should I choose, anything like that, because it's all pre-built to make sure that your site is easy to navigate for your users. You'll see here that we can easily add new content to the site simply by clicking on the icon. Just need to refresh here, and then you can add a new template to your site. Every theme will have pre-built templates. You'll see them all built in here. Once you want to add it to your site, you find the one that suits the content that you've decided that you need to add, and then you just add it to your page. So once it's added, you can see it's been placed right where you wanted it to be. There are pre-built buttons. All of the formatting is pre-built for you. You don't have to worry about colors changing or anything like that. It's all simple. And again, just going in and editing a copy is nice and easy like that. So working through the site, you have the keys to make it your own. You can add your ministries, you can add your services, your sermon notes, or those brand new bulletins that you've just decided to redevelop and redesign. You can start sharing them with the world. And you can even add events to your page as well. So on this page, we have a sample hike for hope. If you have an event coming up, you can use it to collect donations. It's right there with the event itself. It can be, you can add donations with any sort of content you add to your site. It doesn't have to be on a separate page or through a separate provider. You can add forms to your page. There's a host of formats and templates and themes that you can add to your page to really make it the best web experience for congregation and for anybody in your community that's coming to your site. And speaking of donations, you'll see that each site has a built-in donation platform. And it's going to go over to the donation site of this page. And so it has a donation platform that your visitors can use to continue giving their tithes, their offerings, or to a specific cause. You can see there's two different places to donate here, depending on what your visitor would like to donate to. You can add them to any part of your page. So if you're writing a story about some community initiative that you're working on that you need funds for, you can actually add a donation option straight to that story. So somebody will read that story and say, hey, I want to give. They're not starting to look all over the place for a place to give to that. It's right there and easy for them. It also provides charity receipts. So once you click on the give button, you can tell it how much you want to give. And I'll just show you what the process would look like for the end user. And then you donate. And there you go. Everything is customizable. The messaging is customizable. You can link them to a new page and really make it the best user experience for your browser. The other feature, because the donation system is built in, you're not sending them to another website, to a third party where they have to input additional information or their credit card number somewhere else that they may not be familiar with. It's built right onto the website. They're not leaving the website ever. And that also allows you access in the back end to view all the donations that come through your site. So you can see there's a number of donations that obviously these are test donations, and you can set them up to, the individual can set it up to give monthly, so that makes it nice and easy for you, or just one-time gifts. It's all readily available and accessible for you on the back end as well. So we do have a few websites launched at the moment. Molly from First Hmong has launched her site. She's used the contemporary shift theme that I was just showing you. Obviously now it looks very different. This is what happens after you're done working on it. It becomes your own. You've got your own colors in it. You've got your own style. There's donation options available there. Everything that you need to have on your website is placed there by you. You can see there's Molly's added some drop-down menus, so you can walk through different areas of the page. And with the themes and the templates that we've pre-built, you can make them, the content, anything that you want it to be. So this is it's a very quick tour. Like I said, I didn't want to overwhelm you with all of the details and nuances of working with the system. I just wanted to be able to show you the simplicity of it, the functionality of it, and how you can use it to, especially now, connect with your community. So, Gayle, I'm not sure if there's anything you wanted to add here.
Can you illustrate from a regional site how you can, is it easy to illustrate how you can get news from the Mennonite Church Canada or Eastern Canada?
Yeah, let me, yeah, so this one works a bit differently, so let me just see. So when your site launches, let me just log in here for a minute. You'll see that under the system menu, you've got a national and regional news sync. Here you're able to actually automatically import news from other parts, other regions, or from across Canada. So you've got your, you can select which areas you want to import news from automatically. So when an update happens on the regional site for British Columbia or from Canada, this church website will automatically have it imported into their page if they have it set up. Yeah, I have that set up back here. So you can see here, this is automatically importing news from other regions, there's nothing more that they need, that you would need to do in order to bring in news from other regions. It automatically imports. So, and you'll see on the Mennonite Church regional sites, you'll see that they have a really good integration there where all the news from across the sites come in. Is there any questions about how the system works or how you can use it? Or if you're currently using it, if you have any comments on the use of it?
So basically, when we built the websites for all of the regional sites, we agreed to give access to Mennonite Church Canada congregations for a setup fee of $300 and $40 a month for hosting fees. So basically, with that price, you get the whole explanation that Matt already did. You get the template all set up. You do have to put the client, the content in yourself, but we do a lot of help with you. The site is hosted securely from servers that are hosted within Canada, and we make sure that the hosting, that your site is not going to be hacked or anything like that. In fact, I don't think any of our sites have been hacked, have they, Matt?
No.
Like we have a pretty good track record. The donation processing is working through Stripe. The cost of the processing is 30 cents per transaction, plus I think it's 2.1%, right? It's just around the same as almost any donation processing is from a credit card, quite a bit lower than Canada Helps. So I know that Canada Helps has different levels of percentages, but it is one of the lowest percentages of donation processing. And Stripe maintains the credit card access, so you don't have to worry about that. And Stripe is one of the world's leading secure products in terms of giving. What's it called again? Credit card processing. There any more questions? There was just a few questions pop up.
Do automatic receipting?
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah,
it does. It does, yeah. And yes, church members can log in. That's kind of up to you, but that's basically it is provide that function is able to be used. Are there churches that use Barefoot? Right now, it's all Mennonite. There's a lot of charities that use Barefoot. So Pioneers Canada, which is a mission group, Effect Hope, which is a mission group. Those are some of the top ones that are using it now. Christian Horizons, which is a local Ontario charity. And then in your own congregations, right now, just 3 churches have launched, right? We just started working on this.
And so those 3 are Mennonite, First Hmong Mennonite Church, Mennonite Japanese, Mennonite, I don't have the name.
Calgary Chin, Mennonite Japanese Church, First Hmong. Those are the 3 that have fully launched at the moment.
You actually do have to use our system for the giving to get the functionality for it, because we've taken the online giving. We could keep your text giving. This is from Niagara United Churches, just asked that question. If you're already using a service, we do have to change it to Stripe because that's where it's being built. Like all the functionality has been built with them. So that's just, yeah, that in order to make everything work as well as it does, we have to put you on that platform.
I just sent a link to the sign up page where you're able to walk through and navigate through all the 4 themes that I very quickly showed you in this presentation.
There's been a lot of congregations that have started the process, and then COVID came and derailed a lot of our time. And so Ev had mentioned that set us back while working. So I think there's several people who are in your situation as well.
Mm.
So basically the platform that we've shared with you is it all, the history of it is all started with 10,000 villages. Sadly now Villages is closing down their stores, but for the last 15 years we've been working with Villages on their online platform. And then that gave us, we just found that a lot of people were using WordPress or other what were considered free services, but they're, online login church directory is certainly possible. And so then we started building this unique platform for churches and for charities in particular. So a lot of the things are built specifically for not-for-profit organizations, churches, and charities.
Thank you, Matt. Oh, sorry.
Matt, does the newsfeed show the source?
Doesn't no, it can in the back end, yes. Yeah. But you're able to build filters so you can choose, let the viewer choose which news feeds they want to be able to see on the site.
Yeah, we are willing to demonstrate.
So I would say that if you are interested in being a part of the platform or knowing more of the platform, that you be in touch with your regional church office, and then we will connect you with Barefoot. Matt, am I correct in that?
Yep. Yeah, that would be the best way to go forward.
So MCEC can connect with me, Lisa Williams. Manitoba can connect with Daryl Newstetter-Barg. Saskatchewan can connect with Marianne Siemens. Alberta can connect with your communication person who will be hired after June leaves, which is so sad that she is leaving. And then BC is connecting with Rita Ewart. Thank you, Matt, for sharing that with us.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you very much for your time, and thank you, Matt, for going through that. It was really good to be with you all, and thank you for being such a good audience.